Hello, 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 everybody. This is Tanika Steens, and I am your host for Mind Your Business. And tonight I have a very fascinating guest. His name is Arturo Almeida. And 20 years ago, he was 24 years old and he lived in Quito, Ecuador. He had big dreams to marry the love of his life and move to the US to climb. He quit his job as an associate producer of a TV show in Ecuador and landed in the US with two backpacks, a climbing sponsorship, and not a lick of English. After a year, he learned English and he began his climb, and the rest is history. I'm not going to even begin to try to tell his story because it is so compelling. It is a novel. And I met Arturo in the human library. We both are human books, and he really taught me a lot because I was new when I went into this and I was learning. And he was one of the people that I got to learn from. And just hearing his story just really compelled me. And I really wanted to get him on this show because he is the epitome of what grit is. He stands for everything the American dream is. And there is no giving up in this man's body. And I just want him to be able to share his story and let people know that if there is a will, there is a way. So without any further ado, Arturo, if you will, please tell us who you are, what you do, and why you do it. And thank you for taking the time out to join me this evening.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I appreciate it. Who I am? Well, I do like this version of myself pretty much right now. I always work on myself, and I never try to just say yes. This is who I am, and I'm great and perfect, and stop working and all that. So I always like the version, my latest version of myself, which is this one that you see right now. Who I am is, it changes. It's a different version every time, depending on what I learn and what experiences do I have. Then what I do for money, I work as a sales rep for an outdoor company. I do sell a custom cycling gear for teams and all that. And why do I do that job? As just to make some money and pay the bills and the mortgage and all that. But
Yeah,
that is not what I do with my life. I don't never want to think that my job is what I do or who I am
absolutely
at
not.
all.
You are so modest because that is clearly not what I was looking for at all. First of all, I want you to tell people how you landed here, how you built this dream and bought this home and made this money, and now how you. And then I want you to get into what poly is and how you teach tantra
um,
and all of that. I want you to just take us on a exploration of who you were and how you came to be this person that you love right now at this moment.
Gotcha. So I was an associate producer of a TV show in Quito, in Ecuador, and I met this girl Veronica when I was in college, and we started dating. And her dad is American, so she moved here with her dad. He offered her the opportunity to move to the States and be with him after her parents divorced when she was young, and she took that opportunity to move here, and I stayed behind. And of course, I was absolutely in love with her. I wanted nothing but to be with her at that time, but I didn't want to just move here for her or for her to think that I was just following her without having my own path. Like I'm not the kind of person who just follows people. I like to, if I see an idea, I like to, make my own path through that, and not just following the paths of someone else's. So she moved here, and I was in love with her, and I wanted to move here, but not following her. So I was a climber in Ecuador, and every time I went climbing, I will bring a cameraman with me, and he would shoot me climbing. And I studied graphic design in college, and I was doing graphics for TV, like when you see on like Game of Thrones or like stuff like that. All those animations that shows up at the beginning of any show, or the title of the show, or in the news, and all those graphics that show up in there. That's what I wanted to do in college, and that's what I did at this TV show. And then I became an associate producer. So I made this crazy video of me climbing, and I put all these crazy graphics, and I sent it to pretty much every outdoor company here in the United States. And I was just looking for someone to sponsor me so I can come in here to the States, have something to show up for to this girl that I wanted to be with. And I moved to Colorado, and she lived in North Carolina, in Charlotte. And of course, I went to visit her and all that. But I landed. I remember this so clearly, and I think this is what I was telling everybody at the Human Library. I remember getting out of that plane and just having two backpacks. The one I had, one in my back and one in front of me. There was just like carrying two backpacks in front of me, and I didn't know how to speak English, and like dictionary at hand, and like taking the bus. Oh, I remember I took the train to Denver Metro, to the Central Station in Denver, and my friend picked me up from there. I remember it was crazy because I didn't know anyone. He was the only person that I met here. I actually didn't even met him. He was a friend of a friend. He just came and picked me up, and I was like, "Hey, nice meeting you, and thank you for letting me stay in your house while I go climbing and all that." So I just started climbing, like got my backpack and went climbing for months at a time, and I would just set up my tent and live in my tent, and eat the same food day in and day out. I remember just like picking coins from the cracks. That was my thing. Now people will drop all the coins and the quarters and the dimes. I will like pick them up, like put in my pocket. And on rest days, I will go to the coffee station and buy a cup of coffee. And I sit there, use the internet and all that. I didn't have a phone. This is the time when I was calling my parents from a calling card. Go to a gas station and buy a card, an international card, and just like call my parents for that. But I was very lucky. I had really good friends, and I learned to speak English like really quickly. I think I told you this to Nika. I believe that humans are like very, you need to communicate. And when you don't have that communication, in my case, I just didn't have anyone who spoke my language. And the only way for me to communicate to people, it was just, just speaking and saying all the bad things, and the bad words are the first one that you learn for sure. But then I believe that when you have no fear, you learn like pretty quickly, like really quickly. I have no fear, and I wanted to communicate with people, and I just started opening my mouth, and people were super kind and corrected me and taught me how to speak English and all that. And through all this, Veronica and I, we still started. She came to see me in Boulder because I didn't have any money. I had $1,000 when I moved here, and that was all I had. And I didn't have a place to live. I didn't have a car. I didn't have anything. I just had $1,000 and two backpacks. So like going climbing was like the place where you actually get to go and be safe. Like for me, I would just set up my tent and go climbing, and all the climbers were like really nice and helpful. Veronica came to see me in Boulder, and after a while, she just decided to move in with me, and we got back together. But she got very sick and got leukemia and passed away when she was 26. I was 28. I was about to turn 29. So we've been together for 10 years at that time. And I was kind of had to start over again.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of the darkest times of my life. I was pretty sad, but at that point I made so many good friends. At that point I was still climbing, but waiting tables, and one of the regulars at the restaurant, after I learned to speak English and all that, he offered me a job. He told me that I was wasting my time waiting tables, that he will be glad to offer me a job at his company selling internet security. That's what the first time that was my first sales job after climbing and waiting tables. And I did that for like a year and a half, and I got really good at it. And then I got another job at a bar that is, what's that?
Oh, you were froze for a minute, but we're good.
Oh yeah, sorry. So then I started this job, and it was really boring, but I made lots and lots and lots of money at this job. It's a bar, is what it's called, a value added reseller for Microsoft. So I had to take a super hard test to pass this. This is, I think I was on my 8th year being in the United States. After 8 years, but this time I already knew how to speak English. I took a class at CU at the University of Colorado to learn how to write, because that was the one thing I didn't know exactly how to do it well. By this time, I'd been watching TV with closed captions. That was my way to learn how to write, and I would like listen to the words and see how they write it, because English is like it's a very difficult language to learn. Not like in Spanish, the way you say the word is the way you write it. But in English, it's not like that. In English, you say a word and you write it completely different. I remember red was the first one that I was like, what do you mean red? Like the pass of reading, not the color. You say it the same way, but you write it like differently depending on what it is. So it was just like, what? Or a word for everything. There's a word for everything, like boy, girls, like all that. In Spanish, you just have an O and an A, so it's really it's easier to learn because you can just change that. But anyway, so I started working at this company, and I made tons of money, and this company got sold to a bigger company. And with that money, I bought my house in Boulder 10 years after I arrived in the United States, and 10 years ago.
All right. I mean,
Yeah.
starting off with $1,000 and 2 backpacks to 10 years later owning your own home. I mean, that's amazing. That is amazing.
But I don't think that it is like anything special. Like I do believe that you make your own life. Like I surrounded myself with really amazing people who were like very supportive of my life and who I am. And I do also believe that you need to be kind, and you need to be a good person to get all that help. If you're an asshole, nobody will want to help you, right? So there's a lot of things on it that contributed to my success. I don't believe that I did it all on my own. I will be lying. I had help from so many people, and they're amazing friends. Like going to a restaurant and bussing tables without knowing any English is like that's the job that you can get. My first job in the United States was parking cars, because I knew how to learn a stick shift. I remember that. That was the only reason why. I didn't know how to speak English yet, but it was just like, well, a lot of Americans do not know how to drive a stick. So for me, that was like one thing that in Ecuador, you only drive stick shifts, like cars. So driving a stick shift was what got me into my first job, who allowed me to make some extra money that, it was not just from the sponsorship, from the climbing sponsorship, which allowed me to get an apartment with a roommate, which allowed me to get a TV to listen to English and read the closed caption. But I think I also spoke about this and that. Like I am not that classic immigrant. I do I wanted to make sure, like to you and to the Human Library, this is not something that everybody can do, because I was lucky too. I know I went to college. I don't send any money home. Like I could do the things that I did because I was lucky. And I had all these things too. A lot of immigrants come from a different background than me. I am a privileged immigrant. Absolutely.
So let's talk about that, because that's one of the things that in the Human Library that you kind of based your story around is talking about the differences in the immigrants and what how people look at them. And so, can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's one of the things that, for even but even in the immigrant community, like you can see that. Like, for example, even working at a restaurant, I worked the front of the house. I didn't work the back of the house. Like, it wasn't a cook. That usually that's what people go, because they don't want to be in front. They don't want to talk to people. They don't want to be, in the background. So when you see all, like, a lot of jobs that immigrants do, they're in the background always. You don't see them, right? You buy the groceries, but you don't know who picked them, right? Or you do know who picked them, but you don't see them. You go to a
Mhm.
restaurant and you eat food, and you know who cooked them, but you don't see them ever. Like, you know who they are, but they're invisible, and they like it that way. For me, it was the opposite. Like, I came. Both my parents went to college. My brother and my sister went to college. I went to college. My whole family lives in Ecuador. I don't send them any money ever. I have not sent them money ever. My family come to see me every other year, the year that I don't go. So I go one year, somebody from my family comes to see me the other year. We don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about my parents or my family getting visas. Like, it is easy. Like, they can just come
Mhm.
whenever. But also, the drive and the determination and all that thing is, what allowed me to do the things that I did, and being open, and being open to make mistakes, to learn, not meeting only with people who speak Spanish, so I feel comfortable. Like, I was alone, and being alone is what helped me do all these things, and making good friends. But you make good friends who have all these things, because I went to college. I know what I'm talking about. If I I study all the time. I never just sit there and be like, oh, this is who I am, and I'm gonna stay this person. I'm always trying to learn, and I'm always learning more and more and more. And I never want to just sit there and be like, this, I'm perfect. This is all
Mhm.
I want to be. And I think, that drive comes from, my parents and my family. Everybody works hard, and everybody wants to do these things. And I like to work for what the things that I have. Like,
Mhm.
what the things that I am proud of is that, even though I came here with $1,000, and my parents didn't send me money or anything like that, I did buy my house with my money. I did this. Like, I am very proud of that. I did come with only $1,000. Yes, I could have called my parents and be like, I want more money, but I was like, my parents weren't happy with this decision. They weren't supportive. They were like, what are you doing? You have an amazing job at this amazing TV show, and you're just gonna drop it off and move to climb. Like, what are you thinking? You can climb here. Ecuador has tons of mountains. It's like, what are you doing? But I was in love, and I always, like, my heart is very important to me. Like, I always follow my heart. What my heart tells me to do is that's what I'm going to do, and that's what I did. And I don't regret it a little bit. I love my life. I love who I am. I love the people who are around me, and I'm happy. I'm very, very happy.
Yeah. So when you talk about privilege, there's different degrees and levels, I think, to privilege. And
Mhm.
so when you say that, and when you differentiate, I can't get the word out, but when you set yourself apart from, like, say, different immigrants or whatever, because I see you don't really think of yourself as an immigrant. You are like an American, and you have taken on the American way, and you are living that dream that you saw yourself living. But
Mhm.
say, for instance, there are some people that say, I've really had it hard, and coming here, I've had struggles. But I have seen people that say, I got here with nothing, and I did what I had to do to get where I'm at.
Okay.
But as far as your family goes, what was it that was the driving force behind your family? Was it that they always came from a privileged background? Or where did they start from to get to that point to help
Yeah,
you to get to where you are?
it's like the opposite, for example. Like all my cousins went to college. All my uncles went to college, but like they just because their family. My I remember my dad telling me how his older brother. There were like nine in my dad's side of the family, and by the time my dad was in college, his older brother was helping pay for his college. For example, like all the families that okay, we're all gonna go to college. When my dad's older brother went to college and he graduated from college, then his younger sister went to college, and then when they got jobs, they started helping their nine. Like just imagine, like it was just more like my my grandfather and my grandmother just didn't have all the money to send all the kids to school to college at almost at the same time. Like by the time one was graduating, another one just coming in, and it was just it's just like keep
Yeah.
rolling. But they all finished, and they all successful, and they're all doing all these things. Same thing with my mom studied to be a teacher and started you know teaching. Then she and my dad's sister, they started a school together. So then that was like, oh, now we have a school, like now we own this whole thing, which allow for all of us to go to college. But the thing is, like, I remember is always like it was never like this is who we are and this is enough. It
Hmm.
was always more like what else is there for you, like
Yeah.
what if this is it, this is all you want to be, this is all that it is there for you. So for me it was kind of like that too, like just seeing how my parents worked really hard. And but when I'm talking about privileges, it was more about like I bought a plane ticket, I had a passport, like I didn't have to walk for miles and months, I didn't have to beg or pay someone to cross me over and like hide, for
Hmm.
example. I didn't have to do any of that, if that
Yeah.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
that makes
So
a lot
that
of
is
sense.
a privilege. How I see it,
Yeah,
it is very
absolutely.
privileged. Like I
Yeah.
didn't have to do any of that. I was proud to say I had a climbing sponsorship, and that's why I'm here. I'm climbing. Show me, right? I didn't
Yeah.
have to do all the other things that other people have to do. So I don't want to like these people tell me this all the time that I always try to diminish my successes and my stuff like that. But like I just want to be real more than
Right.
anything.
Absolutely.
It doesn't. Yes, I did all those things, but I also was lucky. I also surrounded myself with the right people. If that makes sense. Like it is not
It
just
does.
like me under a rock working without meeting anyone from work to home and saving all the money and then buying the house and being like, oh, I made it. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
Like I
And
was,
they say you're successful as the 10 people that you're around. And so, or you're gonna be like the people that you are around. So when you surround yourself around successful people, then you're gonna be successful. I know that the church that we are affiliated with is most of the people are educators. And so when we started going to the church, it was I had I had started college one back in 2011, and then I just had gave up. But then when we had started this church, it was like something just hit me that I'm in the right place and I'm at the right time. And now in September I will be graduating, and then I'll be
oh,
going on to my master's. And
congratulations.
so it's just about, you're right, surrounding
Yeah.
yourself around the right people and having those right opportunities and people that are encouraging you and uplifting you in the right place. And so I wanted to ask you before we move on, when you are working and you said you're up in the front, and this conversation could go on for days and we could talk about a whole lot of things, but we won't do that today. You might have to come back. But you're up
Okay.
front and you're working and you are just this ball of energy and enthusiasm, and you can tell that you bring light. But then you say that there are other immigrants that are in the back working. Is there a difference, or is there any turmoil between you, or is there a friendliness? Do you have a kinship? What does that look
Yeah.
like?
Oh my God. Super friendly. Really, really, really friendly. But it is. so in this, I'm going to class. This is something great. I was talking about this with my therapist on Sunday about class, like being of a different men. And we're not talking about like class of like social status and stuff like that, but it's just like that connection that you just have with some people that are your people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, I know that that you guys are like in the kitchen and like, causing like all these things and like having so much fun and listening to music and give me such a hard time because I worked in front of the house. But at the end, for example, of the shift when I work at a restaurant, they always had a plate of food for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just go and sit with them and eat with them, even though I worked there. And even they were all like, they're like communities in the Hispanic community is like they're very tight. Like I'm from Ecuador. There's no many of us in here. Mexicans all together. They were like all the Mexicans just group together and they just do all the Central Americans, all the Honduras, they're all grouped together. All the people from Guatemala, they're all like get together. Right. So they are like these kind of groups, but there's never like fights. It's like we're all the same. Like at the end of the day, after we work, you have that connection with your people. And I would just go back and speak my language and eat the food with them. And that is what it connected us. Like, for example, in that part, or language, like we understood each other.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's where we all need to be. Just having that
Yeah.
universal connection. But that right there, and that's what I wanted to look at, because sometimes we as Americans, and I'm just gonna leave it at that, we don't
Yeah.
often have that camaraderie. We come from the same place and we don't have that kinship. We don't have that
Yeah.
brotherhood, that camaraderie. And so just to know that you can travel cross country and still find your people and still not feel set apart, like you're in the front and I'm in the back and you're taking something away from me, but you're adding
Yeah.
value to each other on that level. So thank you for sharing that part with us,
Yeah.
because I know it exists.
I know.
But what I want to jump into now is I want you to talk a little bit about the poly and then the tantra and how you work these things together.
Oh my God, that's another different story. um, I had a really bad breakup 2.5 years ago.
I know your
And
story was like, I'm reading this like, oh, I'm laughing and I'm crying and I'm like, oh my God, who's these people? I'm gonna go beat them up.
yeah, it's a pretty interesting story. And especially for me because I feel that right now I am living my true life. Like these last couple of years since that breakup, my life has changed like 180 degrees on what it was, which is why at the beginning I said like this is so far the best version of myself. Like I am so happy and I feel like I am actually living my true life. um I had a really bad breakup with someone a couple of years ago, and I was so angry, so angry. She cheated on me, and the first feeling that I had, it wasn't like heartbreak. I wasn't sad. I wasn't, like crying of sadness. I was just more angry that I was lied to, that of the dishonesty and all that. Um, I was really upset at my therapist when we started like doing this, because I've been seeing my therapist for a very long time and she knows me. And I have always been friends with all my exes. Like I'm really good friends with all all the women that I've dated before. And I never thought that it meant anything. It was just, for me, it was just more like since we have shared all this time, like I feel that is just crazy that now we don't have to even see each other, or like just forget of all the times that we spent together. So I always try to have a good breakup, like when there's a conversation and just an agreement that didn't work out, instead of a fight and stuff like that. But in this one was really hard because she already cheated on me once, and I took her back, and then she cheated on me again with my best friend's kind of boyfriend at the time, and so it was just not a good situation. I was very angry, and I was just doing some things there that I wasn't. I don't want to say like proud about, but I was just sleeping around, and I got to Burning Man, and there was some of our friends who did this event to speak about consent and learn about what consent means, and a yes and a no, and how to ask the questions, and all that. So I met this woman there, which you know, when you surround, what I said, when you surround with good people, like she just saw me, and just told me, I want to talk to you like after this is over, because I want to give you some advice. And I did. And after a little while, we started seeing each other, and we dated for around 4 months. But I was like angry. I was not a good, I was not in a good place at the time. And I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to speak. And she, after 4 months, she told me, well, there's a lot of things that you need to learn, but since I love you, I don't want to be your teacher. Why don't you speak with my sister, my tantra teacher, and maybe tantra will help you. And then I started learning tantra, and how to communicate, and started having non-monogamous relationships. And I remember, I think in 2016 or 17, or my first or second Burning Man, I met this person who asked me for the first time, when I was in a relationship, if I was poly, like meaning polyamorous. And poly people have relationships with more than one partner, but they're all emotional connections.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you could explain that to our guests, just in case anyone is not familiar with what that means.
Yeah, so in non-monogamy, there are like different types of relationships. For example, there are swingers. Swingers usually are couples who sleep with other couples without having an emotional connection. They can be a physical connection, meaning they are attracted to those people, but only on a physical way. And most of the time, swingers do not want their partners to form an emotional connection with the other couple, for example. In a polyamorous, it's based on feelings. Like I have a partner right now who lives in my house, and I have an emotional connection with her. I have another partner who I also have an emotional connection with, but she also has a partner that has an emotional connection with. So even though we're not all having an emotional connection with each other, I have an emotional connection with these two women that I consider, my partners that I see. I also have, I'm very lucky to have something that is called a polycule. So there are different men and women on a group in which we are see each other often, not always on a sexual way. We just hang out, like play games, and spend a weekend together camping, or just hanging out, eating food, like talking, watching movies and stuff like that, but nothing like sexual happens like at all in the group. Like there are relationships in between people inside the group, but there's never like a group thing happening. Since in poly we kind of have all these different emotional connections with other people that some people don't have with another. But the important part about like being poly for me is, when I like someone, I have to like her on a full thing. Like, I'm attracted to this person physically, intellectually. I have an emotional connection with this person. So it is not just about like sex. If which is totally okay too. Like, I never say, oh, that is not cool. If you're being safe, you can do whatever you want. Like that's kind
So
of how I see it.
let me ask you this. So it's strictly poly, it's not monogamous at all. So what if your partner decided that they wanted to be monogamous? Is that out the window?
It is not. Actually, my partner who lives in my house, she is monogamous with me.
Okay.
Meaning
Now,
she's not seeing anyone right now. Actually, she went on the first date recently, but so far, we've been dating for a year and 5 months, almost a year and a half, and she's been monogamous with me, meaning she doesn't have another relationship except that with me. But I
now,
do have a relationship with other
right. Now
person.
the two that you have the relationship in, do they have an emotional connection with one another?
They do not.
It's just with you.
It's just with me. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
a
how
that's
does
a
that work
total
out?
that's a total different thing when you have so when there's three people having an emotional connection with each other, each one or each other, they are like kind of several relationships, right? There's like A, B, and C. A and B have a relationship, A and C has a relationship, and then B and C have a relationship, right? So it is multiple relationships with each other. That's called a throuple. But it's like three people having an emotional connection with each other. And it happens. And a lot of people in the poly community kind of want that, like, have like a triad is, when three people are sharing everything, like an emotional connection and a physical connection and a sexual connection between the three of them. And it can be any kind, three women, three men, two men and a woman, two women and a man, like all that.
And
Yes.
so is poly something that you have always been interested in, or something you were introduced to, or
So this is kind of going back to like being talking to my therapist, being like, why didn't you tell me? Because I was I always had this relationship with my exes that I love them all the time, and I tell them that I love them. This is not just something that I'm like, oh, we're not together, so I don't tell you that I love you. Like, I still love that person. Like, I still love all my ex-girlfriends. I just don't love them in the same way. We're transitioning into a partnership into a friendship. Is kind of how we call it. So when there's like breakups, there's not really breakups, they're transitioning is kind of what we say. We're transitioning from like an emotional connection into a friendly connection. If that makes sense. We're just not
yeah.
partners anymore. And that doesn't have to always like stop. Like we can still have sex with your exes, for example. And in the police, nothing wrong with that. You can have sex with whoever you want. If there's For me, I need that emotional connection.
And
But
so is that something that you discuss with your partner
oh,
and you guys agree upon that, or is it just what you want to do?
yeah. So after doing tantra and taking all the classes and all that and being non-monogamous for a while, I remember going to my therapist and saying, so I think I want to practice polyamory, and she goes, yes. That's all she does. And I was like, what do you mean? It's like, yes, you're absolutely poly. You should go live your life like that. And I was like, what do you mean? I've been seeing you for years. Why haven't you like said anything? You see me like going through this relationship, monogamous relationship. I took her back. Like, and you were not, why didn't you tell me? And she's like, well, I cannot tell you anything. I can just support your decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But when I
Mm-hmm.
said you're poly, and for me it was like instant. Like I felt so liberated. I did not have any trouble just like jumping in,
Yeah.
and like
And
having no
so,
jealousy. Like I'm supporting my partners, go see other people, like
yeah.
kind of that kind of thing is it's great. I mean, it is, it's not that I don't feel jealousy. I just think that, I can manage my emotions pretty well. I
So you
meditate
have a
every
high
day.
emotional IQ.
Because my therapist also, I don't know, when she said like class, is like you're very emotionally intelligent, is what she tells me.
Yeah.
But I meditate, like a lot. So So getting into my brain and my head and being able to recognize a feeling, like, okay, this is a feeling that I have right now. What is it? Okay, where is it coming from? Like, why am I feeling this way? And having that thing before you explode or before you say something, before someone says something to you and you get angry, instead of just like reacting, is the okay, why is this making me angry?
Yeah.
Right. And after that, my therapist always tells me is, after you decide what the feeling is and you know where it's coming from, then you can decide if you want to engage or not. Engage is the key word, right? Someone insults you and you get angry. And then you realize, okay, why is this making me angry? Well, this person's an
Mm-hmm.
asshole. Then you're going to be like, okay, are you going to engage on this? Is this
Mm-hmm.
important? How is this going to change? Like right now in your life, if you engage in this argument or whatever it is that you're doing right now. Usually when we're happy, we engage instantly. We don't recognize it, we just act. We're happy, we're laughing. I don't care what's going on. That was funny. I'm not going to analyze what made it funny. I'm just going to laugh because that's how I feel. But when we talk about fear or anger, that is when it gets like very tricky, because
Mm-hmm.
that's when we just react instead of being, okay, I'm fearful, but why is this making me, why am I where's this fear coming from? And analyze the fear and being like, oh, this is what happened this time and that's why I'm fearful. And being like, okay, what can I do to get rid of
So,
this?
right. Well, I just want to ask you one more question then, because this is very interesting. But do you, and this just popped in my mind because I don't have any rehearsed questions or anything, and I learn
Yeah.
like everybody else learns as we go. But do you think maybe being poly is a way of you detaching from emotional connectedness to a one-on-one from past hurts?
Mm-mm. I
No.
have, I still have those emotional connections with the hurt. I
Yeah.
don't break up and be like, I am done. Is always, I always try to find a way to be friends with this person. So the hurt, it is going to be there. I still know what they did if they did something that hurt me. The point is like, how is that going to make me feel? Like, okay, this girl cheated on me. I'm going to carry that anger in my heart all this time. I'm going to see her and I'm gonna be like, this so and so person did this to me, and then just like, she's gonna be fine. She's gonna know that she just ruined my day by me just seeing her. She's gonna move on with her life like nothing happens. I get to decide what I'm going to do with that.
Hmm.
At that point, when I see her and I see her with her new boyfriend and I'm angry, and then I am going to decide and be like, I am going to engage on this or not. Or I'm going to be like, yes, I am angry because she did this to me, but it's over. She's with him. I am healing. I am growing on my own. Do I want to engage on that, or do I want to keep my growth, or I want to keep healing?
Hmm.
And I choose that. I choose to heal and I choose to grow and I choose for them to be happy on their own, because there's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that
some
is
people. Oh, go ahead.
also, that is for me like what engaging means. Like, okay, other people like lash out, like go online and just freaking post things that they're gonna regret later. And be like, oh my God, 6 months when they're healed, they look back and be like, oh my God, I was an idiot. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to look back in my life and have regrets because I didn't act the right way, especially when I had the tools to do it. Like
Hmm.
now, I know it, I feel it, I recognize it, and then I make a conscious choice to engage and lash out or fight or yell or scream or breathe and be like, I don't do not need this in my life. My heart is great right now. I don't want to just push this on in there. In Tantra, there's this great thing that I tell everybody. because they say like the mind can cure everything except the
Yes.
mind.
Yes.
Only the heart can change the mind. Like, did I tell you that on the Human Library? Did we talk about this?
We didn't talk about that, but it's so interesting that I actually was talking to a friend about this the other day. So that is very interesting that
Yes.
you brought that up. And we didn't discuss that, but I have discussed that with someone else. And so that's interesting. Yes.
Yeah. So for me, my heart is very important. If my heart is fine, I know I'm okay. And I have this mantra that it says, I write it everywhere. And I have my mirror. In my mirror in the bathroom, it's full of words. And I write it every time I find something, I write it so I can see it. Like when I wake up, I see this thing. And I always say that I want a clear mind and a strong heart, and I always want to be grateful. So it's always clear mind, strong heart, and always grateful. So with that, I know that if I have those three things, I am going to be okay. Because my mind is going to be okay, my heart is going to be fine. And if I am grateful for what I have,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
what else do you need in life?
Well, I was just gonna say one more thing, because I know some people watching may look at it like, you're in this polyamorous relationship now, and you have these emotional connections, and you're free to be who you want and explore your sexuality and these emotional connections. However, your last relationship ended with her cheating on you. What's the difference? Some might ask.
It was a monogamous relationship.
I'm only laughing because
No, and it is true. I'm not gonna say that poly people don't lie, but when you're on an open relationship, you can say to your partner, "Hey, I just met this person and I'm gonna go out on a date with her."
And that's the difference.
And that's the
That's
difference.
the black and white of it.
Because
we're in a monogamous
open.
relationship, you better not do it. But we're in a poly open relationship. Hey, have at it.
It's not always like have at it,
Okay.
because there's always communication. Like, I talk. Sometimes my partner, I don't know if she's listening to this or not, but like I always like say I'm polysaturated. Like I have so many connections and I like so many people that I'm like, oh my God, I have a crush on you, but I can see you because I have two girlfriends, and I'm just saying it started.
You just like everybody. That's not. Is that fair to say? You just like everybody.
I just do it openly though. Like if my partners know who I'm seeing, and there's rules and all that. Like I don't go out on a date without telling my partners.
Yeah.
Like absolutely not. And of course I demand the same thing from them. Now if they lie to me, even here, they can still do that. It's still going to suck. It's going to suck even more. Because they know that I'm okay with that. Like if you did this and you lied to me, like
what's the reason? What do you have to lie for now?
Why you have to lie for it? I'm
open.
like, exactly. That is kind of what made me angry with my monogamous relationship. I would have been okay. Be like, sure, tell me how it went.
Yeah. It could have been better. It could have, if she would have been. Maybe she was just afraid and she didn't know how. Maybe she wanted the same thing you wanted and she didn't know how to explore that with you. So you never know.
It doesn't matter. See,
but you just being honest is everything, and I believe that honesty is the best policy.
Honesty is like one of those, like for me, like number one. And communication. Yeah. Communication is like, if you don't communicate well, it's very hard for me. And I learned this from my partner, who told me you need to learn how to communicate. You don't follow through. It's like when you're getting into these monogamous relationships all the time, it is usually works like that. For me, it was like also the lose of a personal identity, because then it wasn't Arturo anymore. It was Arturo and her. Like you cannot get an invite on your own. Like you're married. It's never like, Tanika, I want you to come over. Can you come over? It's like, well, I have to ask my husband if he's free. It's like, they don't want to talk to your husband. I wanted to talk to you. Like,
no, I'm not going anywhere without my husband.
No, so but you know what I'm saying?
You want him to come.
No, I know. Exactly. But this is kind of like the thing. Like for me, it was very important because I'm a very, like I moved here by
Absolutely.
myself.
I
Like
know
I'm
what
a
you mean.
very
I
like
got
you know, and sometimes people like lose their identity into like the couple. Like you're not who you cannot be who you are without that person
you.
next to you.
Right.
So your
Right.
identity comes with this other person. And the problem with that for me, and this is, trust me, there are 97% monogamous relationships, and 3% are, non-monogamous. The problem is for me is that when you break up, then you don't know who you are. You don't know who you
Absolutely.
are without this person. The person who moves out of it, the person who makes the decision, is always the person who's the stronger on it, because this person found somebody else or something else to put, found their identity away from the person that they're partnered with, and they found their identity into another person or something else, or their work or a hobby or whatever. And the person who's left behind is left empty.
Yeah.
Most of the time, like being like, who am I now that this
Yeah.
person is not here with me? And they just lose that. And that for me was very scary, like being like, oh my god, like I was just so angry, and I was like, who am I? Like what just happened to my life? Like I thought I had everything, and now I'm like in this place where I don't know who I am anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to rediscover yourself and love yourself first. Is like the one
Yeah.
thing. After that for me was just like, always I'm going to put myself first. I'm going to make sure my heart is okay, my mind is clear, and when I have that, I'm okay, and I'm going to be open to see anyone that I can see, or speak to anyone who would like to hear what I have to say.
Absolutely. Well, I
Yeah.
really am grateful that you took the time out to come
Thank
and
you.
share your story with me. And I enjoy talking to you and learning from you in the human library. And like I said,
Yes.
you're very interesting and you are a very kind-hearted, sweet, loving person. And so
Thank you.
I understand that. And so don't stop now. Don't give up on yourself. Keep on going. Endure to
Absolutely.
the end. And one day you're going to find yourself in a great, loving, monogamous relationship. I'm going to pray for you
We'll tell her.
that. And you're going to be better for it. But until then, you just keep on being the Arturo that you are. As long as you're happy with it, then that you live your best life, because nobody can tell you what happiness looks like for you.
That is
And
true.
I believe that before you do anything, you need to know who you are. And you have to understand your why and what you're doing. And that's why I ask those questions: who you are, what you do, and why you do it. And we're not defined by any of those things. We're defined
Yeah.
by what drives us and what moves us. And like you said, it's about having that clean heart and that sound mind, and that openness to want to learn and want to embrace and to want to love. And love is the key to everything. And that can heal wounds, and it can conquer hate, and it can stop war and end disasters. But we've got to learn how to do it by communicating in the right way, correct? So
Absolutely. It
thank
is also
you.
like, I really want to, like, also, if there's anybody listening, that there's you right now, who you are, it is not the last version of who you are going to be.
No,
And
no.
just to be ready to the changes that are going to come on, and all that.
Yes.
That's all.
Thank you. So before we
Thank
jump off
you.
of here, what words of advice would you like to leave with our audience tonight?
Oh, I just like said that is kind of what I wanted to live with. Like,
Okay, there you
just
go.
make sure that, don't be so hard on yourself, like being like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not enough right now. And you might feel that way right now, but things are going to change. And
Absolutely.
everybody has the power to change whatever they want in their life. And when that happens, you are going to be a different person. And that
Yeah.
is not going to change. And friends are going to come in and go, because they're not going to like who you are right now. But as long as you're happy with who you are, and you're healthy, and have good relationships, and all that, like, why nothing else matters, like why you need to do
Absolutely.
that. Thank you
Well,
so much,
again, thank
Tanika. I
you. Hang
appreciate
out with
you.
me while
Okay.
I close this out of here. But thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Again, this is Arturo Almeida. He is a human book in the human library. So we do different readings. You can go and sign up whenever you see on Facebook. There are places where you can, there's different book libraries that are out there, human book libraries that are out there. So anytime you see them, jump in and learn something. There are some very interesting people that and things that you can discover. And I mean, and you can become a human book too. Everybody has a story, and someone out there is waiting to hear your story because they can resonate with it and they can learn something from you. And you are not alone in this world with where you are at, because whatever emotions, whatever feelings, whatever you are going through, whatever thoughts, there's someone else who is in the same position at some place. If not now, they've been there or they're going to be there feeling like you felt. And so if we start to open up and share our stories, we can see we're not that different from one another, and we can embrace one another, and we can learn from one another, and then we can count it all joy. So thank you again for joining me tonight. And remember, you were created with a purpose. So now go be great. Thank you for joining. Have a good evening. All right, hang on. Let me see if I can get us closed out.
How did I go?